You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
If you didn't know, we danced before the show because the intro is amazing. So, welcome to Skim It. If you don't know how the show works, we give you spoiler-free reviews of number ones that are coming out or one shots, and give you our opinions on them. And if they're graphic, like some of the ones that we read today, we'll give you trigger warnings.
Yep.
And there's not much to it. And if we got in books that your LCS did not get in, please don't yell at us. And I'll reiterate that at the end of the show as well. We're doing our best. There's paper shortages throughout the industry. There's ink shortages, which is also causing just issues in the industry. Hello. Hey! So if you're shocked and getting a book that we read today, don't yell at us and don't yell at the store that you go to regularly.
I mean, if you want to yell at me, I'll yell back.
Jenna, please.
Imagine.
But like I said, if we read a book today that you want to read and your LCS didn't get in, please don't yell at them. We're doing our best with the shipment issues, even though we are now post shipping issues pandemic wise. We're still dealing with UPS and USPS issues.
I mean, a whole hurricane took out a whole, printing press area in Florida.
That too, yeah.
So there's like a whole printer out there short.
DC and Marvel have a lot of printers out in Florida and in the areas that were affected by the hurricane throughout the South.
Yeah.
So a lot of main title stuff will be delayed for probably another 2 to 3 weeks because of those printing issues. So just keep an eye on your LCS, and if you see something that you want, we do a live sale show on another part of Facebook after this if you want to come and buy the books.
You can always call your local comic book store, also your LCS, be like, hey guys, I saw this review. This book looked cool. Can you do the order? Yee. If not, okay. So yeah, definitely different ways to check it out. And if you're looking for a new LCS, you can always check out comicshoplocator.com. Because we did that. That's how we found a couple of different comic book stores when we were in North Carolina. So that was crazy.
That's how I found some yesterday to recommend some stuff.
Yay. And don't forget to hit that like down below and subscribe so that way you never miss a show.
And ring that bell to see, well, primarily my face. Her face every other week.
Well, no, they see me Monday and Thursday as well.
Come see her face if you subscribe.
I've got a face. There's a face to be seen. So make sure you share it also. So in the chats, we can all have chit chats and say the hellos.
Yeah.
So everybody can join us.
Yes.
Because it's a party.
Do you want to kick it off?
Let us kick off.
Let's just do Punchline.
Yeah, let's do Punchline. So we both read Punchline. This is the cover B, and I wish I could remember who the artist was. Variant cover by, of course, it is the tiny.
Derek Chu.
So this is the Derek Chu cover that we got. So this was a book that we both read.
I wasn't a huge fan of it. I've heard Punchline hyped up in the DC Gotham universe for the last probably 5 or it's because she had a teaser sometime back in May.
Yeah.
And then had an official release as a tie-in somewhere.
It's part of the Batman series.
Something of that nature, and it was hyped up, and it fell short for me, if I'm being honest. The lettering in it is really small.
So I have to let you guys know. So the lettering that's down here that tells you who the cover is, that's what the lettering is.
Yeah.
It's tiny, tiny, tiny.
I had depth perception issues. She's legally blind. So we both have, when it comes to sight, we both have some level of disability with it. And small letters, like I literally was holding the book up to my face because I couldn't read it. It was bad. Like maybe it's because I need my eyes checked as well.
Even with my glasses, though, I was sitting there just like, what is happening?
So if you have sight issues for whatever reason, if you don't want to read this, I recommend getting a magnifier, just so it'll help. Otherwise, if it was a story too.
Yeah.
It exists. I felt like it fell flat. There was like a weird tie-in thing to two heroes that I didn't know existed. Or they're like anti-heroes. They were, but it was a weird tie-in. Like there was no like context to it. It just, I don't know. I felt like it could have done a lot better for the hype that I got, and I felt like it fell flat. And
the art was really interesting in it.
Because
that was really the only thing I could see. I was just like, wow, look at this. Because you get to see these two characters, and I felt so bad that I couldn't read it.
Yeah.
Because these two characters looked interesting. One of them, she had freezing hands, and the other one had a scepter of fire, and that was cool.
Yeah.
I really wanted to check that out.
And their whole shtick was like playing cards. One of them was the Queen of Hearts, and the other guy was the King, or the King of Diamonds. Like that was their whole shtick, and I felt like they could have used it a lot better, and they really didn't. Unfortunately, I felt like this character could have had a better because it's supposed to be like her intro into like the Gotham universe.
Well, she's had she's had her own Punchline series before.
Yeah.
So this was supposed to be a follow-up to that series. Yeah. But it felt like we were jumping into a whole new, like that series had never happened is how it felt.
Yeah, it felt like, because I never read the Punchline series. I started getting into comics around the time that the series was ending anyways. And I felt like there could have been a better reintroduction of her character to people who didn't read that series. And just have a decent reintroduction, and I felt like that didn't happen. It was just like I'm here, and I'm also like kind of a more edgy version of Harley, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is a character that now exists in my realm of understanding.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you have been reading DC and you know anything about Punchline, go ahead.
Yeah.
We're not going to tell you to not read it.
Yeah,
it's just
I'm not going to tell you not to read.
Yeah.
I will say, and this is probably going to give me a little bit of unpopular opinion moment. This is one of those books with the way that the lettering was done. Yeah. If you don't have a magnifying glass, this might be one that you need to get digitally so you can like zoom it in.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are some, when it comes to letters, some letters don't take into account like the fact that some people who have sight disabilities.
We have to wear glasses.
Yeah, like there, like a lot of people who come into our store wear glasses. I have sight issues. I've had my eyes checked and granted like 10 years, but I don't have optical. And I also have two different size pupils, which causes severe depth perception issues. And depending on the lighting, it gets worse. And if I'm reading in a like mildly lit room, sometimes it causes me to have like this doesn't cause me any issues, but if I'm at a regular house, if like with just a lamp on, like filling up the room with light, if I'm trying to read something with small text, it gives me a massive headache and it makes me legitimately ill. I get very nauseous if I'm reading text that's as small in this book.
So please, letterers,
help us.
You can use two bubbles to say one thing. You could use two bubbles.
Well,
what is this? What does this say? So are you gonna follow up with a book you liked? Yes, I am. I liked. Did you?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah.
So the both of us also read "Damn Them All."
I thought
number one.
I thought it was really good.
I really enjoyed it. So it was really cool because it opens up with Uncle Alfie, and Alfie's gonna be here in a little bit, and I was just like, oh.
One of our behind the scenes people that we do stuff with, their nickname is Alfie.
Oh yeah. And then things happen between our main character and her uncle. Yeah. And then, there's a little bit of demon god there. And then it's 20 years later, and they're burying Uncle Alfie, and then they're at a wake, and people are mad. Why? Because you don't try and rob a wake. You do not go to somebody's wake after they are dead that is full of bold gangsters and people who summon demons and gods and try and rob them. These like group of kids comes in and they're like with guns and stuff, and they're like, okay, everybody hands in the sky, and everybody's like, oh, no, you did not. No, you did not. Do not try and hold somebody at gunpoint at a wake or a funeral. There's rude. Okay, like rude.
Otherwise, the art is gorgeous.
Oh God, it was phenomenal. And then getting to see like at one point another god shows up, and you're just like, that is so beautifully drawn. And the way they did the contrast of it, I think was amazing, because it felt like the gods and the demons were a different art style than like people. And I really liked how they had that contrast. Yeah.
There's like a TV static that falls behind them when the god appears, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, it gives me honestly similar vibes to 8 Billion Genies, with like the art style of the genies themselves, not the whole thing, just the genies and like the general like aura that gives off on them, and it's gorgeous. I thought it was pretty good.
I can't wait to see where this is going.
Yeah, because it seems like it's very open-ended.
So like also like I don't know if you guys can see, she's holding a hammer, and there's a joke in there that's like, oh, your hammer's so heavy. This hammer's heavy. Oh my gosh, they did the thing. Do you want me to bring the hammer down? No, he likes his hammer. And it gave that kind of vibe about the hammer to me. So I really can't wait to see, like, just sort of what the cast they're building up for it. And then a random cop shows up, and they're like, cop versus demons and gods.
Go ahead.
You do you, Bill.
Yeah.
So I really can't wait to see.
I'm very excited to see this series.
Group of characters do what they're gonna do. Yeah, I think it's definitely gonna be interesting.
And so I will warn you. At first, it may be jarring the way that they write it. They're supposed to have a British accent.
Oh yeah.
So it comes off as jarring until you like realize that they're talking in a British accent, and most of this is taking place in England.
Yeah.
So just a warning there. It may be a bit jarring when you first go into it.
Just think of a really like old Brit accent.
Yeah.
And then sort of like slang Brit accent with the younger peoples, and the older peoples just. Oh yeah. I really can't believe he pulled out one of the scenes is they pulled out a shotgun. It was like, put your hands up, I'm robbing you. And the dude was like, are you kidding me? And just like slaps it out of his hand.
Nope.
And then just slaps him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that was rude. You brought a shotgun to a wake. That was rude. You got slapped because you brought a shotgun. That was less rude. So yeah, it was yeah.
Well, to make it lighter, I read Caffeinated Hearts. It's a one-shot from Source Point, and it was so cute. I loved it. The art style on the front is definitely the art style inside of it, and they make a reference to one of their other works. It's Space Cadets. Or Space Cadet. It's one of their children
today.
Really?
Yeah, I have it
it's one of their kids' titles, and they make a reference to her reading it, and I saw it just very small, like it's like half a panel, and you just see a little bit of it, and I'm like, oh, that's so cute. It's a cute little love story. It's adorable. Like, it's very comparison to everything else that's been released this month. It's very upbeat. It's adorable. The art in it is gorgeous. They make a reference to whenever you get stuck in the Starbucks line of like everybody paying for the car behind them.
Aww.
And Rude Businessman breaks down the
rude
the thing. It's just a cute story overall to like break up like the negativity that we've been mentioning and like the darkness of most of the stories that we've been reading this month. It's very like light in the dark. Yeah, like they didn't hold back the end of this month on everything else. But pick it up. It's adorable. It's absolutely like it's a very cute. There's a very cute meet cute at the end.
And you showed me the art style.
It's gorgeous.
Oh my God.
It's so to show you the cover to give you guys a general understanding of the art. the cover, the same art style is on the inside. It is gorgeous. It is pen and watercolor, and you can definitely tell. That just the only reason why they're using pen is just for the outlines. Otherwise, the rest of it's all watercolor. There's at one point a huge page that shows off their coffee shop. That's just art on one side of like the sky because it's a floating coffee shop. But it's a floating coffee shop above a major city, and you just see part of the sky, and then the coffee shop on the other side of the page, and it's just this one just giant long thing. And honestly, if I could get it as like a 3-panel kind of piece of art, I would get it absolutely and put it in my room.
He was like, beautiful. You see this? I want this as a poster. And I was like, okay.
That's because like I grew up with art my whole life. Like my dad and my sister wanted to be a special effects artist, so like I grew up with like certain art scenes, and I'm always a sucker for watercolor, and just the meet cute at the end, just it's a single page. We're just like, hey, you want to go out for a date? It's adorable. I recommend picking it up, and especially if you want a gift for like your spouse, your partner, or anything like that, just like a cute, like, here's a cute little love story with a hint of action. It's like 2 pages. Here, it's adorable. Take this. I love you and this book.
I love you and this book. Please read it.
Please read this book.
Please read the book.
For you.
I don't know if
I didn't read a lot of positive stuff this week.
I did not read anything positive except for one story, and it was still about murder.
It was a very dark week.
Oh gosh, these books, I'm gonna have to say.
It's not about Nightfall.
Are you sure?
Yes.
So I am gonna preface this. I do not hate things. Right? Like, you can ask Liam, you can ask anyone else on the channel.
It takes a lot for her.
It takes a lot for me. And I don't hate this, but the first story in this book, I literally had to put down and walk away. Major trigger warnings for this book. So this is Nightfall double feature.
It is grotesque.
The first part of it. The first story, there's 2 stories in this because it's double feature. And so the main story is bones are appearing out of nowhere. They're just showing up. And so what happens is somebody's playing the piano and everything sounds terrible, and he opens the piano, it's full of bones. This bride is walking down the aisle to say I do, and then all of a sudden her dress turns into a rib cage and crushes her.
She showed me the stuffed animals, and I was...
The stuffed animals. They were helping this little girl. I think she was getting an MRI or something. Yeah. And they're like, there's something wrong with these stuffed animals. And they cut them open, and they are full of bones and other things. And at one point, the part that was kind of my line, was there is a mountain of bones, and at the top of it is
children's bones.
Yes. And
when I tell you that she had to stop reading for about 5 minutes, she had to get up and like go walk away.
I did.
And it takes a lot for her to stop. Like, she's recommended me a lot of messed up stuff. And I'm not weary to the grotesque. One of these, this one specifically talks about snuff films. Yeah. And like, I'm not weary to the deranged and grotesque. But it was a lot.
So the first story, I actually had to stop reading it, and I was just checking out the pictures and moving on. And there's some sort of revelation at the end that's apparently a cliffhanger. So anybody who's okay with something like that, go for it, grab it. The second story was a lot more stomachable.
Tameable.
There we go.
Tame. Tame.
But it was still pretty disturbed. So it's about a family in an RV, but it opens up with one person walking up to the RV, and it's just like demons whispering, "Come help us, come help us, like come with us, come save us." And you're just like, oh no. And then the very next panel is a happy family with like 3 kids, 2.5 kids, and mom and dad, you know, in the RV. And the youngest kid is like, oh my gosh, my parents are getting along. Cringe. And you're just like, what? Why is that kind of adorable? And the way that they've done it. And then they have to make a stop. And then it just, you know, it tumbles into what happens, kind of. Yeah. But, yeah, the second story was, and the art style that they did it in was really nice. Like, both of them had some nice art to it. It was just that first story. I just there's certain lines that I can't really, you know, cross. That was one of them. Yeah. Yeah, so that was one of them.
Stepdad seems too happy.
Yeah, the soon-to-be stepdad was kind of happy, and he seemed kind of nice. Mm. He did. He just was like, we're out here to try and, you know, be happy and relax, and yeah. Just, okay, good for you. So yeah, that is the book of the week that I would.
If you are weary to, it's the panel that she was talking about with the bride.
It took a whole page.
It's a lot.
It took up a whole page.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Because she looks so beautiful and happy, and they're talking about, oh, and a bride, because they were reporting on all the places the bones were showing up.
Yeah.
And like there was a bride that all of a sudden her dress was a rib cage. It just starts, you watch her just choke in blood, and then she falls. It's just blood everywhere. You're just like, yes. That's not a spoiler. That's in the beginning of it.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
That was in the beginning of the book. It's not a spoiler.
Well, anyways, Star Trek.
Yeah, let's Star Trek.
Radically different than Nightfall, just to try to break up the tension. Night and day. So I grew up with a Trekkie. I know nothing about Star Trek. So I was confused, very confused by Star Trek. They were making references to characters that I know nothing about. My dad was a Next Generation guy. He loved Next Generation. I just never found an interest in it. It was not my thing. Doctor Who was my thing. That was.
Did you see the new Doctor?
I did. Yes, we're gonna talk about that later. We can talk about that after the show. Just hold on to your excitement because I was excited too.
Okay.
So,
I'm not spoiling anything.
So. It, like I said, I never grew up with Star Trek. It was never my thing. They mentioned Picard, like there's like a reference to Picard in it. Like he's shown in like a couple panels. But because I don't know anything about Star Trek, I didn't find it entertaining myself. Because it was number one, I had to read it. But if you've been reading Star Trek, if you're a Star Trek fan, go ahead, grab it. I'm just some person on the internet. Just I can't tell you anything. I was a Whovian. While my dad was downstairs watching Next Generation, I was upstairs watching Doctor Who on Netflix. So I
forgot it was on Netflix for a while
before BBC cut their licensing ties. Anyways, but pick it up if you're a Star Trek fan. It's just not up my alley. It's not my thing. It's too nerdy for me.
Now wait a minute.
There is no such thing. Now it'll be on Disney Plus. Well, yeah, because BBC works with Disney. I think Disney is like close to buying them.
Please don't sue us, Disney. Disney, thank you for all the great things that you have
My
given
dad
us.
spent $5,000 to take me to your great big mouse park 4 years ago. So
we give you money every month to watch all of your shows and movies. I don't know why, but I half expected Disney to show up in the chat, just be like, I heard my name. Like, no, you didn't. I'm sorry.
I love Disney. I watch them all the time. I just finished watching She-Hulk.
Oh goodness.
Dead Mole. Deerbrook.
All the malls that are happening right now is kind of how it feels right now. So this is set currently. This is happening now. Like they had cell phones and stuff, but one of the first lines that they said in the book is, I wrote it down. Hold on. The first line in the book is, everybody believes life started in 1964. That was the first line.
You did not tell me this.
That's the first line. It's like, everybody here believes life started in 1964. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, how does that work out? And so it's a group of kids. They go to this like dead mall, but it's told from the side of the mall.
That's cool.
but not in a good way.
That's cool.
Like the mall is like, yes, Beth, come in, make my job easier. And you're like,
I don't like that.
but you're a dead mall.
I
Like, what could be
that.
your job? Like, I don't understand.
Coming to C+ for. Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So they're all in the mall, and then the mall starts saying, oh, we need to get them to work for it. I bet they will be delicious. You're like, okay, Mr. Mall.
Sentient Mall.
And you don't realize what the mall's trying to say until the kids can't get out. Because of these things.
That's gross.
Because there's so many of these things that the mall, the creatures actually control like the things in the mall. We got the lights they can turn on. They've got like the gates for the doors they can like open and close, and they're messing with the kids because the kids I say kids are like teenagers, like between sophomores and seniors in high school, right?
Let's tie back into Doctor Who, Public Science in the Library.
Yes.
My life is Doctor Who, anyways.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know how else to describe it, but like that. But so there's this one scene where they're just like, we need to open it. Where's Beth? And Beth looks behind her, and Forever 18 is lit up for a minute. And close it. What?
Cabin in the Woods or
Oh God, yes, yes. And even these other things that are in the mall, they actually had locked up one of their own things because it was crazed. And they were like, oh, darn it, it got out. And you're just like
it got out.
And all of a sudden,
nonchalant.
And it's weird because it almost looks like these kids can't see these things.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, he looks down, 2 of his fingers are missing. And I'm like, bro, you didn't see that giant, 2-ton thing coming at you? What? So we're going to have to see where it goes in this impossible mall of non-escape and num-nums. And there may be a good num-num. Maybe one of these things is good. Maybe. Num-nums. Because that's all they wanted to do. It was like, oh, tasty fingers. Num-num-num-num.
Anyways.
That's why it's on the second shelf.
Yeah. This is on the bottom shelf. So it's there's no good transitions today, it's fine. So this is a 3-section different story, there are a bunch of different stories. One of them is an Archie story. I don't read Archie comics, it's just not my thing. I grew up seeing the digests at Walmart in the checkout lines, and I flipped through it, but I was never a huge Archie fan.
Archie versus Predator versus Alien.
I'm aware of it. We have it in the store. We have it on the floor.
It's actually pretty good.
I've heard. But I just never grew up reading Archie. And I've read Archie on this show before, and I've made it very clear that I'm just not a huge fan of the art style. Or I like the art style. I'm not a huge fan of the story style. Maybe it's just because I'm not a fan of reading stuff that's aimed at a younger demographic, aimed at a teen audience. There's an older demographic that does read Archie. I'm not knocking that. I get it. You guys grew up with it. It's been around since
there's
forever.
Younger ones too.
Anyways, hey there, fellow kids. just keep a shimmy with the skateboard. It's whatever.
Oh my god.
Oh, I used to have a skateboard, anyways. For an Archie story, I thought it was entertaining. There is a very interesting story with Veronica, getting a dress from an antique shop. It was giving me, what was the name of the story? Rick and Morty made a joke of it. Devil owns an antique shop. I don't remember what the name of the story is. I was asking her.
Devil owns an antique shop. That sounds like a great, headline.
It's great. I don't know.
Devil retires. I don't know.
I
can't help you. I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
Sorry.
But it was giving me that vibe. And it was just good. For an Archie story and for it being Halloween, it was pretty decent. There's a really good Sabrina tie-in. Yes, Needful Things. That's what it was. It was Rickful Things.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
It was Needful Things. It was super duper, absolutely like inspired by Needful Things. It was absolutely giving that vibe. And like there's murder in that story. It's a really good, like, it's 3 separate stories. They don't tie it in. They're all like separate, like, horror stories, or horror for the Archie universe. And it was good. I mean, it was an Archie story. For me, not being a fan, that's why it's on the bottom shelf, because I know none of the lore, none of the backstory. I watched Sabrina the Teenage Witch on TV. That's the closest.
Now hold on a minute. I saw the movie with Ryan Reynolds in theaters.
I watched Melissa Joan
Melissa Joan Hart too.
Really?
Yeah.
Did not know there was a movie.
Before the TV show.
Time to find content.
A couple of years before the TV show, there was a movie with Melissa Joan Hart and Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds was Harvey. No, Ryan Reynolds wasn't Harvey. Ryan Reynolds was the popular character, and he had those blue.
I did not. What's that? The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
I watched it. I actually it wasn't terrible.
I didn't watch it because I was worried that it was going to be bad, but I also didn't know that Sabrina was a comic until after the show came out. And everybody was like, it's based off the comics. Nobody should be angry because it's based with the comics. And I was like, there's a comic? And I was like, that makes more sense. After reading one of the Chilling Adventures that came out a few weeks ago, it makes more sense.
That leads me to this next question. And this next question is going to tell me what we're doing tomorrow based off of your answer. Have you seen Josie and the Pussycats?
It's been a few years.
The movie.
It's been a few years.
Okay, so you have seen it.
Yes.
Okay, so we're good.
I have taste. How dare you?
I have the whole album on my phone.
Anyway. Yes, I do have taste in movies and comics. I just don't read them.
Woo! Okay.
But it was good. It was good for a 3 separate story issue for Archie. I feel like that's a good way.
I'm gonna just start reading me what they're saying because I just have to be like, it's gone.
Like the MCU connected. That's what they said.
Yeah. So I guess it is my turn again.
Yes.
Let us have talkings about a book
that
I have so many questions about.
She showed me a lot of art. It's very strange.
American Jesus. This is Revelations. So this is the 3rd part of a trilogy of books. And
it's a book.
It is a book that I read that has left me with questions on why do we open a book with naked angels?
She's not kidding. She showed me the
first page. The first 2 pages is just naked angels being like, why are you doing a thing? And they'd be like, well, why are you doing a thing? And then they're like,
he's panel of just nudity.
The angel Michael.
Yep.
And then follow-up question that also leads into that same thing is thank you for showing us historically, biblically accurate angels at one point, but you started off with not. They started with human forms, and now they're,
the art in it isn't jarring. It's just it's a bit erotic, to say the least.
Yes.
Because it looks like they changed their thought process halfway through writing.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I
like Mark Miller's stuff, which says something.
Mark Millar. So here's the thing. It is this first one is set up to go over what happened in the last 2 parts of the trilogy, right? And it's also set up to bring you up to speed on what you've missed since the last one stopped and this one picked up. But like my number 1 question, and I think I put it in all caps. I did put it in all caps. Why does God look like Gandalf?
That she literally, I was like, what do you mean? And then she turned and showed it to me, and I was like, why does God look like Gandalf?
I asked that question out loud to myself, and then he's like, what? And I was like, oh, I said this out loud. Let me show you.
Whenever we read in the studio, and I keep a headphone in, or I put in 2 headphones, and I just catch up on YouTube, and I just hear her just say, from where we're currently sitting in the studio, why does God look like Gandalf? And I just look up from my video, and I'm like, huh? And I'm like, that's the tagline.
That's
this
a
book.
tag.
Why
That's
does
a
God
tag.
look like Gandalf?
So it
Beautiful.
does kind of like, it shows us where everybody is at from the last series of, whoever survived. And it also shows you kind of like some new characters to play with. And I do have to say, this trilogy is not this trilogy. I'm sorry. Yeah. This last storyline is setting up for not just Revelations, but for Judgment Day is how it felt. Oh. As somebody who is very familiar with, Revelations in the Bible, this was scary on how close they followed it, while also making it like,
She taught me about religion.
Like there was there's also parts of it where they show actual text, like Bible verses, and you're like, and I'm sitting here like, I mean, that's one way to take that verse, but I mean, okay, that is one way to take the verse that they put in there and do that, because like, judgment. It felt like I could feel it, and the art style is very similar to this. And you do get to see, like, not just because you see the Angel Michael, you see the Voice of God Metatron, you see Lucifer, you see Seraphil, you see, you see a whole, it's crazy. I do have to give a content warning because at one point, they're having, they drink innocents' blood from the innocents. Ew. In their hands. Like they're holding them. That's gross. And then they cut them and then they drink them.
That's disgusting.
Yup. I had a hard week in books this
week. Well, this is not a lighter subject. There's no good transition. Lovesick, number 1. I was reading that at the same time as she was reading Revelation. And so if you know anything about red rooms, anything about the dark web, it talks about snuff films and live stream snuff films. Gabriel, let's make a platypus. That's what they said in chat.
Okay, I'm not going to drink anymore. We're good.
So, I said that to myself 2 years ago. Anyways.
Water.
Anyhow, so it does depict not graphic murder, but it's very heavily implied. And there's a lot of blood, lot of blood. No, even I don't even have to be there. Still got her.
I see how it is. Okay, Mr. Producer.
And so you're not even in the screen.
I can pout off screen.
And so if you are very weary towards like the discussions of red rooms and snuff films and the disturbed that does go along with it, because they still do exist. They exist on the darker web. Because the surface dark web is monitored by the government.
Rude.
It's true. And
hi, Mr. Government.
If you are weary to it, I've made it very clear on my TikTok. If you are weary to that kind of thing, I don't recommend picking this up, but I thought it was beautifully done. I thought it was very well done for the depiction of snuff films and the live stream market that does exist. And it does lead into the next issue doing a red room. There is nudity in this, like 2 or 3 panels of nudity. And
there's a lot of nudity this week.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a bit weird. I have not actually read the comics Red Room. I've been told to read it though.
There's another one where if you kind of so if you guys don't want to get super graphic into like red rooms and snuff films, Zenescope also did it part of the Grimm fairy tales, Tales of Terror.
Yeah.
And they did it really well.
Oh wow.
They did it really well because each one's one issue on the Tales of Terror series.
Oh, that's not bad.
Where they did one of snuff films and they did one of like red rooms.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So if you kind of want a little like, I mean, sure, there's still
because it is an actual, it is a legitimate issue. Like to make it serious, that kind of industry is a big issue, and it's a very heavy monetized thing. Like people like make a lot of money off of red rooms and live streams that are talked about this. But it's back to escaping the real world.
Are we? I mean, this week.
Pick it up. It's pretty good. If you do like the darkness that, from generally what I have been told of Red Room, pick it up. It's dark. It's good. It's perfectly done. Anyways,
all right. So
let's lighten it up a little
bit. Yeah, let's talk about Moonlight.
Yeah,
Kind of.
Moonlight. You said Moonlight.
Well, it felt like it. So this is Moon Knight, and it also included Werewolf by Night,
which they teased in last week's issue of Marvel.
Quick question to everybody out there.
She already asked me.
Who is dumb enough to kidnap Moon Knight's daughter?
A lot of people.
The answer is a pack of werewolves and a god. And that is not a spoiler because it shows up in the first 5 pages.
She's not kidding. She showed me.
Yeah, like in the first 5 pages, they're like, yeah, so some sort of prophecy is going on, and this god comes up and is all like, we should take his daughter. And they're all like, cool, let's take his daughter.
The daughter is super sassy.
Oh, she's so sass. So
I
sass.
love her.
And she's sitting there with her pink hair, being like, so you think this is a good idea? You know who my dad is, right? You know what's gonna happen, right?
What is her name?
Oh my gosh, I just blanked out.
Because
it's gone
our
now.
lovely producer behind the scenes said Sunbeam.
Maybe. I'm so sorry. I blanked it out.
Book.
No. We don't have time. I didn't realize how many books we still had left. It's only minutes. So
we only have 2 books.
No.
Oh no, we have 4.
I have 3. No, I have 2 in this one. Anyway, yes, I'm going. So, Werewolf by Night. And then our main Werewolf by Night, our main dude, is fighting with the head dude, being like, bro, release the little girl, we're gonna get slaughtered, what's wrong with you? And the dude's like, oh, but the prophecy, and we can totally keep it, it'll be fine. And he's like, you're stupid. And he's like, I'm not dumb, you are. And you're just like,
You're stupid.
But you're stupid. And then, the whole interaction at the end of the book, you can ask him. I just started laughing.
I was reading, and I was like, what are you laughing at?
I was laughing at the complete interaction between, the whole, the ending. So this was a fun book to read. But if you know nothing about Werewolf by Night or Moon Knight, or Khonshu, or anything else, they kind of give you a little bit of things to catch up to.
Essentially, if you know nothing about current Moon Knight,
that's totally fine because this is outside of current Moon Knight.
Yeah.
So I would pick it up if I was you guys because this is the annual.
Well, transitioning over to another Marvel series, Strange Academy Finals. So I actually haven't had a chance to read the original Strange Academy series because I've heard it's adorable. I really want to pick it up. I like coming of age stories. It was good. It gives you a general catch up of what happened at the end of Strange Academy. And lets you know the very first panel, Doctor Strange is dead. Tell you straight up, and I'm like, okay, I knew this.
That being a huge deal, almost a year ago.
Oh yeah, and they just a little panel, just Doctor Strange is dead, and we're here. It's not knowing much about the original Strange Academy series. I was a little bit left in the dark, but that was fine. I felt like knowing generally the synopsis of the characters. I generally understood what was going on. The first page, the very first page, even before you get into it, it tells you all the characters. So it just gives you a general outline and then gives you a general synopsis of what happened with one of the characters. Because they give you a timeline up until the point that we're at now. And I thought it was good. It wasn't a bad series for me not knowing anything. So if you read the Strange Academy series in general, pick it up because you'll enjoy this.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I don't know, is this show even still on? A show called Survivor. Is that still on TV?
Yes. I think so. I watched it when I was a kid. That's all.
Yeah, I watched it when I was a kid and a teenager. Like, it was on forever. So think of this as a Survivor, but with demons and baddies and death and gore. And it is, so this was 72 pages. It's the Grimm Universe Halloween special. And
it's on season 43.
It's still on? Wow. Good for you, Survivor. Good for you. So this is Survivor, but with demons on a bloody island, and they record it. And I don't really know what audience is watching it, because sometimes the staff gets like murked. So like, okay, there are all kinds of like demons, and not just demons, but like monsters and like things that go bump in the night that like to eat people. Yeah, that is. And it starts with a group of like, I think it was like 9 contestants, and 2 of them are like sisters, like twins. Mm-hmm. And yeah, people die at the fair. People die in the Survivor.
Yeah, I kind of figured as much.
2 people fall in love. Yeah, that didn't work out. So I would definitely pick it up. It's a full story. It's a one-shot from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. So if you get a chance, I would pick it up. The art style was really cool too, because they kind of like leaned into like this type of art style where you could see like happy, campy, but also side of deathy. Yeah, that's what I gotta say about that.
So Riddler, year 1. So I actually have never like. I don't really know much about the Riddler outside of like the Gotham series that I watch on TV. Wow. I know generally like about I know like generally about his character.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah. And they go a bit more in depth with this, and they do talk about like some corruption within like the big business, and like how if you let people continue fudging these numbers and you acknowledge it to anybody, we will kill you. And you can generally see Edward's like mental health slowly going downhill, and getting worse and worse. And you can absolutely see him like just getting just more mentally ill, and you can see him gradually go into like the state of depression after being told this was not the best idea that you could have. And
that's one way to say it.
Yeah. And so like if you're a Riddler fan, if you enjoy Riddler, pick that up. Like, I not knowing anything about him comic wise, I loved this. I thought it was really good.
I really like what they're doing with this series, because they've done Two-Face, they've done Penguin, they've done like a bunch of people.
Oh yeah.
And it's really cool to see this side of the.
They're doing Penguin as the next issue.
I thought they already did Penguin last week.
No, I'm thinking about One Bad Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I love how it's done by the Black Label series. Yeah. So that means it's like the nitty gritty ones, like the dirty gritty ones.
It's good. Yeah. It's really good.
And most of them are contained in a one shot. Is this one?
Nice. Yeah, for the most part.
Nice. So my last book was my favorite book, and it was actually the first book I read today.
It was.
And I kind of wish the rest of the books would have followed suit.
Oh,
I guess they kind of did.
No.
Yeah, I mean, everybody died in this too. So. It's not a spoiler, because that's how they start. That's how they start. Okay, so we see this guy right here, and you see his mom right here. Yep. So I actually wrote a thing. It's called 3 Kids, 1 Killer, 1 Survivor.
Sounds like a trope.
Except for, so it's set up so he's in the house with his mummified mom taking care of her, and he hears her whispering to him, dark, bad things and how bad of a kid he is, Yeah. But right outside his house, there's 3 kids trying to figure out how to do a summoning with a teddy bear and a pentagram on the ground and their dad's Necronomicon.
Fun. Like a Tuesday afternoon.
Oh, yeah, Tuesday afternoon. And inside, all of a sudden, he hears this guy right here. He hears, banging. And he's like, oh, no, I left someone alive. So he runs upstairs to unalive the one person he accidentally left alive. And then so much happens in 3 pages that would give it away. And I'm not going to give it away. But it ends up the kids did a thing.
Wow. That's very insightful.
And it was adorable. the way it's drawn is like this, and he's adorable. Like he's making like breakfast for his mom. He brushes her hair, you know, of the mummy.
Norman Bates called.
Yeah. So, but it was adorable, and it was kind of pleasant. Just body parts everywhere.
Besides that,
it was adorable, and I loved it, and I can't wait to see more. Like, I want to see more. I
was
want
very
to read
interested
more.
for that series. And
it's by Keenspot.
Oh,
Keenspot.
wow.
So Keenspot usually does a lot of like parodies and stuff like that. So getting to read this as a combination of like 3 or 4 different like classic horror movie parodies put together, I loved it. I can't wait to read more because I want to see if those kids actually brought the teddy bear to life or not. We don't know yet. We'll know. We'll know later.
Well, to end it on a lighter paranormal note, Dr. Rigby. Well, this takes place in a. So at the end, they tell you all the references that they make in it to like classic horror films. But it essentially takes place in early Walt Disney World. So this little girl gets lost on the equivalent of the Haunted Mansion, in their universe on a mansion to avoid copyright. And
the haunted house of
Ghost Manor.
Big House.
It's called Ghost Manor.
Oh, the Haunted Manor. I like that.
It's
Ooh,
not
I
just
like
called
that.
Ghost Manor.
I want to call it Haunted Manor. I want a Haunted Manor.
Anyways, so this little girl gets lost on the ride, and then chaos ensues. And from generally what I'm understanding from the end of this, with like a general profile, is that he's from a different comic universe, but I don't know which one. Like it states that like he has different stories in different universes. And I'll boldly assume that it was probably because it's Source Point. I don't know. But it was hinting at the fact that he's a character in a different universe, and I was like, okay. Like they bring him in with expectations that like he, you know what he does. He does this whole thing. They do make a reference to Walt Disney's head being frozen under Disney World in their own special way.
Oh my god, that makes sense. Futurama moment.
You need to read the last page. But I thought it was good. I felt like it didn't have to be just a one shot. I felt like it could have been like a mini series. It could have been like maybe a 3-issue series, but it kept like splitting it into 3 different like stories, even though it was one continuous story. It was like part 1, part 2.3, but like it didn't need to have those separate parts. It could have been just fine as a continuous series, just like a jump cut to the next scene instead of like cutting to the next chapter. I don't know. It was cut up weird, but I thought it was good. I thought it was very entertaining in comparison to everything else that I read this week.
Did the cuts take you out of the story?
A little bit, yeah. It was a little bit jarring because I thought it was setting it up as an anthology series. But instead it just like cut it, and I was like, okay, I guess this is the format that we're going with. I mean, that's a format that I've seen before with Source Point. I got no beef with Source Point. I love all y'all's work.
I do. They have been like on fire.
Oh yeah,
like, all year, just everything.
I read 2 Source Points today.
I'm jealous. Number 1 is on your top row, or one of them is on your top row.
Yeah,
I see how it is.
But if you like the general like small like aspects of like how if Disney had like pocket universes within their different rides,
I'm pretty sure they do. We just don't know about it.
That's what they mention in this. But the end with Walt Disney essentially being frozen, very fun. It was a very fun reference. They make a lot of Alfred Hitchcock and Stanley Kubrick references in it. It's nice. And they also, the front of the manor is supposed to look like the manor in Rocky Horror. I think that's an actual reference. So that's my favorite conspiracy theory too.
That Disney has pocket universes?
No, that Walt Disney's head is frozen under Walt Disney World.
I think Walt Disney is frozen as that one that's holding Mickey Mouse's hand, and you just wait. All American Dad style. One of these days,
he's Mr. House.
One of these days, he's just going to come back and be like, I'm just going to be like, oh, God, some of you didn't get frozen.
But since we only have 5 minutes left.
Okay, guys, I want to thank everybody for joining us, and we can't wait to see you guys next week. Make sure to stay tuned after us to see Jay, Dan, and Kyle read same books and different books than us, and kind of give you an in-depth thing on what they thought about them. And we can't wait till we see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye, guys.